Hey friends, we're back again with another edition of Locked On Twins, and we're going over free agents the Twins signed that you may have forgotten or in some cases didn't even know about. And if you're not enjoying this series, all the Twins have to do is something, and we can talk about that instead. So this is our version of a hunger strike. This is Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey again, it's Locked On Twins. I'm your host, Brandon Warren. You can unfollow me on Twitter at Brandon_WARNE. And Black in Back needs a snack. It's Dave Brown. How we doing? I have no idea where that came from.
What is it? I know it's in reference to something we were talking about before we started recording, but what else is it a reference to?
It's actually Back in Black by AC/DC, and I just was trying to rhyme it, so I couldn't come up with anything too quickly. But Justin Morneau used to walk up to that song, and I am actually a bit of a walk-up music historian. I have a Google Doc of the Twins walk-up songs through history. Incomplete at this point because it hasn't been updated for the last year, but maybe someday we'll talk about that too. Thanks for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, and of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Dave, I don't think I asked how you were doing, did I?
I'm sure it was implied.
Well,
I'm doing fine.
Good.
Brandon, how are you doing?
Oh, again, I don't know that I would call this necessarily a hunger strike, but like
I hope not, because I like to eat.
Yeah, same. And this is it's not a protest, it's not anything like that, but like this is my idea of engaging fun content while we're waiting for the Twins to trade for Jesus Luzardo or sign Matthew Boyd or trade for Harold Ramirez. Any one of those things would be helpful, but
Hitting Harold, one of the Hitting Heralds.
Yep, exactly. And also, I want to remind people too, we love comments in the YouTube comment section because it allows us to kind of converse with you, get some ideas of what you like and don't like about the show. 5-star reviews on iTunes and wherever else you listen, Spotify, are huge. Don't know why, but they're huge. They're good for us in terms of our placement on the lists of everything and the rankings. So we appreciate.
Should I go on to Spotify then and game it so we're getting more likes on it? Can I do that?
If you haven't, then I know you're working on signing some paperwork to make this arrangement official. I should say you should go in and you should do that.
All right. Well, I will. I'll do that, and then I liked your idea not to just scuttle what we had going tonight. I'm not saying we should do that, and obviously that would be a disaster. But the whole whose walk-up song, the history of Twins walk-up songs would be something interesting, I think, for people to consume as well. So that's a great idea for a blog, a vlog, a podcast.
Podcast log? I don't know. Today's episode, by the way, brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself with a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com and use the code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. That's Jase Medical, JASE.com. I want to go over that walk-up music idea is a good idea, and I don't know that it would be a 10-part series like this one feels like it's going to be. Knock on wood, it won't be. But, I think that could be a lot of fun because, there you go. I think it could be a lot of fun because, I don't know, for whatever reason, like, that takes up a lot of real estate in my mind. What would my walk-up song be? And it changes every day, but I don't know, maybe you and I will go back and forth on that sometime. But we have a lot of ground to cover. To recap the most recent episode, we talked about Esteban Beltre, Ricky Bonas, Orlando Merced, Melvin Nieves, Gus Gandarillas, Midre Cummings, Bobby Ayala, Butch Husky, Jason Simon Tachi, Damon Hollins, Quentin Gitkraken, Kurt Abbott, Brian Meadows, Michael Jackson, Mike Tremblay, and Carlos Pulido, the dearly departed within the last 10 days or so, Carlos Pulido. any of those stand out to you? I know you said you liked Mike Tremblay. We had a lot of fun with Butch Husky in the midst of our goofy technical difficulties, which were on my end, I might add. But any of those stand
That's good because I don't have any idea how to fix anything. So if it was on my end, we'd be in big trouble.
Yeah, I know how to break things. I don't know how to fix them. Because for me, I would say, Butch Husky was kind of the fun one to revisit.
Running into the left field fence at the Metrodome, which
even just his existence as a Twin.
Oh, for sure. He's got kind of a fun name. He was on a bunch of different teams, both coasts, I think. He's a guy that if you are alive at that time, basically, you know Butch Husky. And certainly not a superstar, but kind of a big prospect and a big man. Yep. And did some funny things on the baseball field, sometimes unintentionally.
Almost like the precursor to, was it Ken Harvey on the Royals, who was really funny too? Like there's one time he got a throw, like hit him in the back from the outfield, and he just collapsed like a sack of potatoes. It was like a cutoff throw, and he ducked down to avoid the cut, and I think it just cracked him. He was either the back or the back of the head. I've never been able to find the highlights since. So maybe it didn't happen. Maybe it was a fever dream. But I do remember him being kind of hilarious on the baseball field.
If I ever run into Ken Harvey, and it's not impossible that I will, I'll ask him about this, and maybe he'll know what the heck you're talking about.
Yeah, probably not, because I am probably making it up. We're into 2003, so we're still 20-plus years away from where we're headed. But on January 30th, the Twins signed Shane Andrews, third baseman Shane Andrews, who, for whatever reason, I was remembering as an Astro. He was never an Astro, not even.
You're getting it mixed up with Sean Barry, aren't you?
Sean Barry. For a second, I thought maybe Morgan Ensberg, but no, it's Sean Barry for sure. Shane Andrews, though, signs with the Twins before 2003, coming off 7 games with the Red Sox, being out of Major League Baseball altogether in 2001. But a few years before, 98 with the Expos, 102 OPS plus, 25 homers, fair share of strikeouts. And I'm not really sure that he was it seemed like he was decent defensively. So like his peak, he had a 2.0 Baseball Reference WAR that year in 150 games. That's not a bad player, but at this point, just kind of well beyond his effectiveness, even though he was only going to be entering his age 31 season.
He's another guy. I swear most of these guys fit into this category of somebody who wasn't a huge prospect, but was coveted in fantasy leagues because he could hit for power at third base, at least in theory. And it came to fruition a few times, as you mentioned that one season, I think the 98 season. I don't remember anything that he did with the Twins. So do I remember him even being on the Twins? I can't say that I do.
Because he wasn't for very long. He was he was released by the Twins. Actually, no, he spent the season in the organization, not released, but that was the end of his career. But never played for the Twins in the majors. He played at Rochester for 126 games, had a 733 OPS, 11 homers. That is the kind of line that as a 31-year-old will get you a full-time job in AAA and move you no further, especially if you're behind a certain someone named Corey Koski. Yep. Yeah,
you're going to have to do better. You're going to have to get up extra early to beat out Corey Koski in the late 90s, early O's on the Twins at third base.
Well, and Terry Tiffey was in the mix too. Obviously, I don't think you'll remember him, but
how can I forget Terry Tiffey? I mean, I almost don't remember him, but I do. With that name, you're going to remember Terry Tiffey.
Came up and had a decent little run, but was, it was I think he finished he had a September call-up run. Not the best third baseman September call-up we've ever seen from a Twin. Tommy Watkins would be in that conversation. Glenn Williams would be in that conversation. But there's been some nice little runs. Michael Ryan had a run. Who was the catcher? Josmiel Pinto had a nice little run. I think Chris Parmalee had one. It was so funny how September call-ups were such a bigger deal before they really limited them. I mean, I guess maybe it's not that funny, but that was kind of the deal with some of the third basemen who snuck up. And again, we were talking about Shane Andrews, not Terry Tiffey, so I don't know how we got on this.
Well, that is the nature, though, of this discussion. Bring up an interesting player to a certain extent. There's only so many things we can recall about him. But you start to play the Kevin Bacon game, and he was related to this guy, and you come up to that guy, and then that's sort of where the conversation goes. Do you know? Though I'm sure Terry, our audience will appreciate this. When Terry Tiffy was sent down to the minors, you know what he said? "I'll be back in a jiffy because I'm Terry Tiffy."
Oh, we got to go to break. That was bleak. Let's have a message from our friends at Jase Medical, and we'll come back and try to wash the stink off us from that one. Well, Mr. Dave Brown, we're going to talk about Jase Medical, and I want to see if I can find my Jase case here. Yes, I can.
It seems like a very useful product, and I'm not just saying that because they are a wonderful sponsor.
So if you're watching on YouTube, mine is kind of like a seafoam green, and I've already used one of my meds, Zithromax. So you and I were both sick back and forth in December. I kind of joked that you got me sick and I got you sick or whatever, but obviously we all know how that works.
It's really unlikely given that we only know each other in this way through electronics.
Yeah, I'm not good at virology, but I don't think it works that way. But anyway,
not Pearl Jam's best album.
Yeah, right. So yeah, people come to listen to the show about baseball, but we do like to think about real life, and the FDA says that pharmacies are running out of antibiotics, like just basic ones, amoxicillin, the ones that, unless you're allergic, everybody is aware of. But right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade, which is super scary. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling, easy for me to say, than if my wife or one of my kids got sick and a supply chain issue was going to keep us from getting the meds that we needed. But we'll be okay because of Jase Medical. That Jase case that I showed you has 5 different antibiotics in it to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, and others. All that stuff could happen to us. I didn't have to spend any time sitting in an urgent care, an emergency room. I didn't have to sit around other people risking them getting me sick, me getting them sick. It actually worked out really nicely. So visit jasemedical.com. That's JASE for Jase, and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. Yeah, I got mine super quick, and they're tailored to you. They're catered to you based on how your encounter / review goes. But it's never been more important to be prepared than right now. Visit jasemedical.com, again, JASE, and use the offer code Locked On to get $20 off your order. All right, Dave Brown, we need to talk about Mike Fetters. 12 days after the Twins signed Shane Andrews, they brought in Mike Fetters, who pitched a grand total of 5 games for the Twins. So 5 games, 6 innings, 1 strikeout, or your garden variety 1.5 strikeouts per 9. Very Aaron Cook with the Red Sox-esque. But as I recall, a pretty big fella.
Big, tall man, 6'4", big face.
Yeah.
Bill James, I don't think it might have been about Fetters, but it was about somebody when Bill James was doing, I don't know if he's doing prospects or fantasy still, but he said, looks fat, but isn't.
Yep.
And I think that's how he described Mike Fetters, but if it wasn't him, it was somebody like Fetters. And that's, I think, a way to kind of look at Mike. He sort of had big jowls, and he was more tall than anything else, and he had a big face with that kind of baby fat that doesn't ever go away.
Yeah, and I think it's possible I had him mixed up with Bob Wickman too, who was never a Twin, but Bob Wickman
was Wisconsin, which is next to the Twins.
Yeah, it's all subconscious. In June of that year, the Twins signed James Baldwin. If I'm not mistaken, Baldwin won like 12 or something like that games with the White Sox a few years before that. He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight years of 10+ wins. Second in the Rookie of the Year in 1996. Easy layup question here: who was the AL Rookie of the Year in 96?
In 96?
Yeah.
Easy layup question.
Come on, man.
I don't. I used to know the answer to these things, but then I just stopped looking them up.
Okay, well,
I don't remember.
he's a Hall of Famer from the Yankees who played shortstop.
Oh, Derek Jeter.
Yeah. Nice little year for him. Jeter, Baldwin, Tony Clark, who's in charge of the Players Association now. Rocky Coppinger, who I remember a little bit.
Rocky Coppinger.
Jose Rosado. Darren Erstad, who probably had, outside of Jeter, the best career of everybody else. Actually, not probably. I'm pretty certain of it. Tony Batista, Twins legend. Jeff D'Amico. And then Tim Crabtree, who I remember virtually nothing about he was a reliever for Toronto. So no, I do remember a little bit. But Todd Hollinsworth on the other side, the Dodgers, I think, had like 5 Rookie of the Year players in a row.
Yeah.
With like Karros and Piazza and Mondesi and all those guys. But Baldwin was, not a bad right-handed pitcher. Another guy that I recall being kind of sturdy and tall. Career WAR of 9.3, career ERA of 5.01. But, kicking around for 11 years, that's no joke. He did have 10 appearances for the Twins, no starts, 5.40 ERA in 2003.
Didn't throw terribly hard. He did have a few good years, as you pointed out. He was, I wouldn't say he was like a huge disappointment with the White Sox, but like Scott Ruffcorn, he was a rookie prospect a little before Baldwin. He was a huge disappointment. Baldwin maybe was a mild one with the White Sox, but he put in a number of good years or a number of mediocre years as a starting pitcher. By the time he gets to the Twins, there's not much left in the tank, although he did have a couple of good years as a relief pitcher later on. Maybe if he had switched to that sooner, he could have pitched a little bit longer. But
well, the recurring theme seems to be these guys are in their early 30s too, so it just goes to show how non-linear careers are. And when you look at a guy like Baldwin, 200 innings was his peak, but another 199, 178, 175. ERAs, high 4s, low 5s. That was basically the quintessential steroid era number 5 starter.
Yeah, a difficult era to pitch in. Even for that's what amazes me about Pedro and Greg Maddux and the ERAs that they put up in those times when it was just a shooting gallery out there, and like in the Old West when you're dodging bullets at the OK Corral. It's not very friendly time for pitchers. So even though I mentioned how Baldwin wasn't as good as people hoped, still it's a difficult time to go out there and try and get people out when you don't have like the best stuff in the league. So anybody other than the greatest pitchers are at the mercy of, I don't know, I was going to say like Brady Anderson, but even lesser hitters than that. So
Mike Devereaux. We'll go with Mike Devereaux. No, it's probably a little too early. Pedro had that one year where what do you have, like a 1.74 ERA? All I remember is every time the Twins played him, it just felt utterly helpless because that's how good he was.
And you were just a fan. You didn't even have to go up there with a bat.
Wouldn't have done any good.
You felt helpless.
Well, okay, so November 21st, 2003, the Twins sign Greg Hallman as a free agent. That was later voided. I don't know if it was due to age or what it was. Coming over from the Netherlands, if I'm not mistaken. But Greg Hallman is no longer with us and was actually murdered by his brother, who pretty well documented was obviously Greg made it to the major leagues with the Mariners. And I think he was big talent, but the Mariners had a lot of guys who were big talented, but never really put it together. Jeremy Reed, Dustin Ackley, and that's all kind of that era. But tragically, I think he was back in I could be completely wrong, but I think he was in the Netherlands and his brother stabbed him in like the front entry of their place or whatever. There is a tremendous, tremendous story on ESPN.com from maybe a decade ago by I think Wright Thompson that I would highly, highly recommend people checking out. But if I knew the Twins had signed, even ever so briefly, Greg Hallman, I had forgotten for sure.
Yeah, I mean, when you think of him, you think of the unfortunately his undoing at the hands of his family member, and it wasn't that long ago. I can remember it was a was quite a shock on Twitter, especially if you followed any teammates of his or coaches or anything like that, and people were just kind of beside themselves with shock and grief. It's yeah. So yeah, Greg Holman is unfortunately, one of those players who is remembered for something awful that he didn't have any control over, but such is life sometimes.
Right. Yeah. It's just unfortunate how it all went down, and I'll have to look into why that was voided. I can't remember why exactly, but international free agency back then was quite a bit different than it is now. Now you've got July 2 and you've got bonus caps and all that stuff. This was a November signing. So it was a totally different beast, which makes it kind of hard to relate to present day times. The next signing is one that honestly, I can't believe I didn't pay more attention to. January 22nd, 2004. So I was deep in the throes of my senior year of high school. And the Twins brought in a hometown son, Mr. Rick Helling. And I remember growing up knowing everything about Rick Helling. Went to Kishwaukee College, University of North Dakota, and Stanford. Is that that sounds like one of those Johnny Carson Carnacks where you say those three and then you open it. It's like, what are three colleges that gave out honorary degrees to, I don't even want to say a name.
I was even thinking of a different Johnny Carson bit where he puts up the map where he wants you to go to the car dealership and you get out and you cut off your Slauson. And it's, when you say Kishwaukee, it's hilarious that the guy went to Stanford, and I don't want to offend anybody from North Dakota, but it's kind of funny that they somehow found him. So that's all.
Yeah, University of North Dakota doesn't even have baseball anymore. That's how things have gone since. Helling, more than 20 career WAR, 20 wins in 1998, finished 21st in the MVP, which, boy, that gets pretty granular down there. But 200 innings for 4 straight years, 175 with the Diamondbacks in 02. 03 goes a little sideways on him. And then 04 with the Twins does not appear in the major leagues. And in fact, is released in June, signs with the Rangers in about 10 days later, and then is released by the Rangers a month later, and then doesn't do anything again until the Brewers sign him a couple times in free agency, 05-06, where he becomes, I believe, a reliever, and he's a fairly decent one, not great, not bad. But it's just curious to me that the 04 Twins couldn't have used him as a reliever or something. But the Twins bullpen back then with was 04 was Joe Nathan, because the Joe Mauer debuted and he was traded for Brzezinski, and Nathan was in that trade. So yeah, maybe the bullpen with Nathan and Rincon and JC Romero and LaTroy Hawkins. LaTroy Hawkins probably was 1 foot out the door at that point, if I remember correctly. But either way, just surprising to me that Rick Helling didn't surface with the hometown team even once in 2004.
Well, you look at a lot of these guys, people that you're bringing up, you see that they come to the Twins or some other team and it doesn't quite work out. And then years later, they get another chance, or they get several chances between then when it doesn't work out with the Twins and later on. And then they stick in the majors for a while. Sometimes it's all about timing, the health of the individual at the moment they sign. So, the Twins probably wanted to make it happen, but just based on who else they had and whatever Helling's situation was physically, as far as what he wasn't able to do, it just wasn't meant to be at that time.
And he didn't pitch like lights out at he was at New Britain for a minute and then Rochester. He didn't blow it up. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like he would have had some kind of like wink, wink, nudge, nudge, go down there, throw some innings, and once we have an opening, we'll find one for you. And maybe that's what it was. It just never came to fruition. And then he opted out or asked for his release. But just surprised me that in 04 he did not surface. Now, a pitcher who did surface in 04 is who we're going to talk about next. But first, a word from FanDuel. So our friends at FanDuel want you to know that the regular season has wrapped up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel. America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. You don't have to do your misery mitigation. It's no matter what, guaranteed. And the app, if you've been on the app, super easy to use. So many different ways to bet. You can have live same game parlays. Bets are in the new Explore tab. And you can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, which is the best way to find popular parlays. And I have never said parlay so many times in so short of a period of time. But you can do much, much more in the app, including parlays. And again, much more.
There it is again.
Yeah, that was my own fault, though. But again, $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. Still can't get past that. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. All right, we're coming down the home stretch here. Joe Beimel was the lefty. And I recall in 2004, I moved down to college and I started going to games as much as I could. I ended up getting season tickets in 2006. And Beimel came up, and I remember him pitching against, it must have been against Baltimore near the middle of that month. And his ERA on the board at Target Field, or not Target Field, the Metrodome, was like 40-something.
Yeah.
So he gave up 8 earned runs in an inning and 2/3. And that's a 43.2 ERA. You're thinking, oh man, this guy's, he's never going to be a big deal for anybody. And then he goes on to pitch for an entirety of 13 MLB seasons. Some pretty good seasons in there with the Dodgers, and not a lot of strikeouts, but a good serviceable reliever even until 7-8 years ago.
That ERA you're referencing, when it was over 40, after he left the Twins that season, he pitched in 509 more major league games. So obviously he was not at the end of his rope. And lefties are funny, and he was only 27, 28, something like that when he was on the Twins, and he had been, people obviously, for some reason, we know random Pittsburgh Pirate guys. I mean, he's as Pittsburgh Pirate as they come. I mean, oh yeah, Joe Beimel, he's on the Pirates, and you wouldn't really know too much about many other players, but you knew him, and he just had a great career. An ERA, it was like a 4 ERA, but if you could do that for 13 years, it means you're doing something right.
He made in his career a tidy $7 million and change. So yeah, not bad work if you can get it. Appears he was represented by Jeff Fry, who I've had some fun with on Twitter. I don't know if he's had fun with me, but I've definitely had fun interacting at him.
Jeff Fry was an agent, or is?
No, I think it's was, which I don't know what the meaning of was is in that sentence, but it appears he is no longer. Next, in May of 2004, the Twins signed Todd Dunwoody, who more a name that I recognized from that era than an actually good player. I knew him as a Marlin.
Right.
Florida Marlin, not an actual Marlin. Pretty decent outfielder as far as, versatility and all that, but just did not hit very much at all, and got almost 1,000 plate appearances in the big leagues. He was past his prime by this point, though. His last big league game was almost 2 years before he signed with the Twins.
Okay. So, yeah, I wonder if there's a scout or something that knew him from earlier in his career and, was hoping for something. That was a guy, I remember him and like, well, is he going to be the Todd, or is Todd Hollinsworth going to be the Todd? He was down there as well at some point. So they were just, I think they were adding so many Todds that they just were trying to hit on one of them. But
just a couple of Todds doing their thing. Well, in 2004, he was 29. So again, you get to this point where you're not really like past your prime physically, but maybe just the game is done with you. But he had 305 with a 335 on base, 494 slug in 85 games at Rochester, and they brought him back actually the next year. Plays 96 games with a 660 OPS, decidedly worse. And that's it for him as a professional. 13 years as a pro, and that was it. But never saw the light of day with the Twins. But I, again, hadn't really thought about Todd Dunwoody. I more thought about Dunwoody as the college that's on the way into downtown Minneapolis, which you passed, or I always passed, on the way to going to the Metrodome when I got season tickets in 2006.
Oh. What do they teach there at Dunwoody U?
Outfield defense, apparently.
Okay.
I have no idea. I think it's I don't know if it's a community college or what it is. Little later, actually about 2 weeks later, the Twins bring in reliever Gary Glover. And again, Gary Glover, I'm going to check because I want to make sure I'm recalling correctly, because I'm not. For some reason, I thought he was a lefty. Was he a sidewinding righty or like a...
Absolutely not a sidewinder. He was an over-the-top. He might have been a three-quarters, but nothing close to sidewinder.
Why am I remembering him as like a funky reliever? But either way, also not named after the video game Glover or vice versa. But he was a White member of the White Sox. I always have trouble with White Sox versus White Sox. And so Twins fans knew at least some about him. But yeah, just kind of a run-of-the-mill right-handed reliever. And the Twins actually released him like a month later. So might have been just now you see me, now you don't. Let's see what happens kind of thing here.
Yeah, he went to like 2008 or so with the Rays, yep. I think, or the Tigers. So he had I don't know if you could say he had a good arm, but he's 6'5". He's a big, handsome right-hander, kind of one of those kind of guys that I don't know if they liked having aesthetically pleasing people around, because he didn't get a lot of outs. He had like a 5 ERA for his career, so not a terribly effective pitcher. It's certainly around the time when he was with the Twins. So you use what you got.
The goatee on him on Baseball Reference is very like era specific.
Right.
It's if he had a tribal tattoo or like a barbed wire on either of his biceps, he could have passed for like Buff Bagwell from the old WCW days.
Who does he look like? He looks a little bit like, who's that actor who gets into James Franco? He looks a little bit like James Franco.
I see like a skinny Paul Konerko.
Yeah, I see that too.
Not skinny, but like not even downgraded. It's like if you tried to draw Paul Konerko from memory, you'd probably end up with this.
That's true. That's what would happen to me, because I'm that kind of drawer, not very good.
Well, that's my bit about Kyle Anderson on the Timberwolves. He's like if you tried to draw Stephen Curry from memory. People also say that Klay Thompson is if you tried to draw Drake from memory. So those always make me laugh, because it's like
I don't know that I see that, but okay.
Well, either way. Here's a fun one. December 13th, 2004, the Twins signed Bud Smith. You remember Bud Smith?
I remember Bud Smith. I remember Bud Smith throwing a no-hitter for the Cardinals, and then 9/11 happened, and I don't want to like link the two things, but nothing was the same after that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to link them either, but rookie no-hitter week before 9/11. I think it was like 7 strikeouts, 4 walks. It was one of the most like meh no-hitters. Yeah. I think the most meh one I can remember, like in my lifetime, didn't Edwin Jackson have one with like 8 walks?
I think Edwin Jackson had 8 walks in every appearance, but yeah, you might be right. I remember Joe Cowley had
not that Joe Cowley,
Joe Cowley, the pitcher Joe Cowley in 1986. I want to say he had a no-hitter with like no strikeouts and 7 walks or something like that. It was just I remember listening to it on the radio because it was a White Sox game, and it was horrendous.
Dave, I was born in 1986.
Well, I mean, I was a teenager. I'm old.
No, I'm not trying to be a jerk. The next one, Bud Smith, again, never pitches for the Twins in major leagues, but another one of those guys that handsome son of a gun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you say so. No, he's good.
The next
2 seasons. Huh.
Yeah, the next guy, January 4th, 2005. I don't think there's any way you're going to guess, and I don't know if you looked at the Google Doc, and if you did, then you've probably cheated. So this guy does not play in the big leagues for the Twins, but did play in 776 games, 2,194 plate appearances from 1996 to 2004 with 5 different teams. And the position column, or is that a row? No, that's a column because it's top down on Baseball Reference, has like 7 entries in each season for positions played. Do you have any idea who I'm talking about?
I mean, I always hope the answer is Kamara Barti, but it's probably not.
It's not Kamara Barti. It is, let's see. He is currently the Major League Field Coordinator of the Boston Red Sox.
Oh, is it Bill Miller? Bill Miller?
It's Andy Fox.
Andy Fox, yes.
Minus 0.5 career Baseball Reference WAR, which is hard to do in almost 2,000 plate appearances, is it not?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you do it right, you hit a few home runs and you play shortstop and center field or whatever. I don't know if he was one of those guys, but if you can play shortstop and continue to play shortstop, whether you're good at it or not, if they put you out there, you will get offers.
It's like Nefi Perez or Denny Hawking. We had Denny Hawking on one of my other shows, but we'd love to have him on this one too. He's a very interesting guy. USA Baseball. He's got daughters who play soccer. Yeah. He's a fascinating dude, but not someone we're going to touch on in this episode or any subsequent episodes. 2 more, and then we'll call it an episode. We're only going to get through the beginning of 2005, which, it is what it is, but we're still waiting for the Twins to sign anybody outside of Josh Stelmont. Next, we have a third base, catcher, first base hybrid who went to camp with the Twins in 2005. And I remember there being some hype about it, but more so because of the era. We didn't, in 04, 05, we were kind of getting into the baseball prospectus, Moneyball, walks are good, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought this guy had a pretty good chance to make the team. I feel like they talked him up quite a bit and would have made sense as like a backup catcher, corner infielder. Again, any idea who I'm talking about?
Probably after you say
Eric Munson.
Oh, Eric Munson, yeah.
3rd overall pick in the 99 draft. I didn't realize he was drafted that high. Top 2 picks, both named Josh. You remember who they are?
Josh Beckett.
The 2nd.
And Josh, no, I don't.
Hamilton.
Josh Hamilton. That's right.
So the next 3 picks after Munson. So Hamilton, 28.2 Baseball Reference WAR, 35.7 for Beckett, minus 1.4 for Munson. And then the next, 6 picks? The next 5 picks, 4 don't make the major leagues. And then Kyle Snyder, 0.4 Baseball Reference WAR. Corey Myers, Twins prospect BJ Garby, Josh Girdley, who I don't know anything about, and then Bobby Bradley, but not the one who played for the Cleveland recently. Okay. Then Barry Zito, Ben Sheets, Brett Myers. Like this round is actually fairly strong. Mr. Jenny Finch, Casey Dagg also in the mix there in the supplemental round.
I remember Eric Munson just for somehow thinking that he was Thurman Munson's son, which I obviously never read anywhere because it's not true. But he was a catcher and his name was Munson. So and he was born in 1977 at not the height of Thurman Munson's powers, but maybe his fame. So I thought maybe, but no relation.
Nope. Eric Munson, no relation. No, I'm kidding. So Twins bring him in though after hitting 19 homers, 212 average, 289 OBP, 445 slug. But back-to-back years, 37 combined homers, OPS plus of in the high 90s for a guy who can catch a little bit, play a little third base. I'm a little surprised too that he didn't make the 05 Twins even as a backup first baseman. 05 was I can't remember. I think 04 was Koski's last year, so 05 would have made some sense for him to help them out, but he got dumped at the end of spring training. Koski was in Toronto that year and then Milwaukee, and then it was over for him.
Watched by Corky Miller.
With the Twins? Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, boy. Corky Miller, and then trying to think of who else they had. Chris Heinz, maybe?
Yeah, that's one. And of course, the great Mike Redmond, who we all love.
Oh, yeah. Mike Redmond. Okay. Did you know he used to take naked batting practice?
Where would he take it?
In the cages underneath at the Met.
So
And
yeah, so that's why Shohei does it in the cage. He doesn't have any clothes on.
This was like an open, like people knew about this. The people didn't see it, but it was definitely an open, like well-known thing.
I interviewed Mike Redmond in a Answer Man 20 questions like format when I think he was, or I don't remember if he was in the majors, but he came up in the Kane County Cougar. That's a team in the Chicago area, a minor league team. So that was the hook for our newspaper at the time. And we did not discuss naked batting practice, but I wish that we had.
Well, woulda, coulda, shoulda. Last one we'll get to in this episode because we are way over time. Twins were looking for left-handed, relief help for quite a while there. Eventually, they settled on Denny Reyes, who also kind of walked I think literally one of his legs was shorter than the other, so he kind of had a hitch. But he threw just a goofy slider that, for whatever reason, just killed lefties. But one of the lefties who didn't make the team, who is still in baseball, actually just switched jobs recently, moving down to Atlanta. Any guess? Broadcaster.
Oh.
Just left the Rangers.
Oh, CJ Nitkowski.
Yeah, so CJ Nitkowski. My favorite CJ Nitkowski story. Do you know the one?
Favorite broadcasters.
The one who pitched the time that his kid pitched poorly, and one of them said, "Don't worry, when your dad pitches poorly, we have to move." You ever heard that story?
Maybe.
Yeah, that one cracked. I think it might have been his mom. The kid had a tough game, and he goes, "Don't worry about it. When your dad pitches badly, we have to move."
I'm going to somehow use that on my kids in some way. I'm going to obviously have to twist the story, but I like that story. I do.
No, totally worth it. Well, when we reconvene, there's some fun names coming up here as we get into 2005. Armando Rios, Tony Batista, Sean Wooten, who actually, I believe, won a World Series with the Angels when they beat the Twins. And his wife used to come into my UPS store and send him packages when he was coaching the Chattanooga Lookouts when they were in the Dodger system. And what absolutely delighted me was the address to the stadium. One Line Drive.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah. So
that is one of the funniest brushes with greatness I've ever heard. Well, this guy's wife used to come into my UPS store.
They lived in Victoria, which is not really a suburb, but like one of those country towns not far off. But they have a pizza ranch. So, yeah, I used to have a podcast.
They're not a sponsor, right?
What's that?
They're not a sponsor, right? Pizza Ranch of Lockdown.
We could keep hoping, but no, not to this point. Kirk Cousins does commercials for him, though, so that tells you all you need to know. Yep.
I can't believe I haven't seen people make more fun of him for that. People make fun of Kirk Cousins for anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially when he doesn't plug into his charger and then plays a primetime game and runs out of battery. Because he's robotic. Get it?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Anyway, that's a wrap. We got a lot of fun names still coming up. Or if, the Twins sign somebody and we can actually have a discussion about something that's happened in this decade. We're into this century, at least. We're into the 21st century. It's kind of like going to northern Minnesota. Like we're finally in the 21st century up there. And so
well, the Twins they're going to spring training with 20 players and that's it. So get used to it.
Yep. Well, we got some fun ones, and then we also have Sidney Ponson coming up. So again, thanks everyone for hanging out. Thanks, Dave, for hanging out as well. Yeah. So we'll talk soon. And thanks for listening to and watching Locked On Twins, and we'll see you tomorrow night.